You tell them, yes, it's still about hope. It is still about change.
There are going to be bumps in the road.
What difference at this point does it make?
If you like your health care plan, you'll be able to keep your health care plan.
They're not listening to the concerns of their constituents.
You can't change Washington from the inside.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
You place your hand on his Bible when you swear to tell the truth. His name is on our greatest monuments, all our money too.
And welcome to the Friddle Show. I am Crystal Heath, but you can call me Friddle, Crystal, whatever you want. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this evening. You can write down our toll-free telephone number. Give us a call later if you would like. It is 877-297-8022. And as always, send me your questions and comments on Twitter. Just use the hashtag AskFriddle, and I will respond to as many of your tweets as possible later as well. A lot of good stuff happening tonight. We have Janie Johnson, the author of Don't Take My Lemonade Stand and Obama 2012 Slogans Rewritten, which she just sent me both of these books. They are both awesome. Can't wait to have her join us. And then, and they just fell on the floor. Well, that was exciting. And then a good friend of mine is going to be stopping by later this evening as well. She's actually in studio here tonight, so that should be fun. But first off, the government wants to spend well, they don't want to. They're going to. They're going to spend $1.5 million to study walking to school. Walking to school. What exactly is there to study about walking to school? I mean, they're basing this on the fact that they think that our early ancestors, like our grandparents, who walked to school weren't as overweight as kids today because they walked to school. I mean, of course not. Did they miss the stories? I don't know about your grandparents, but my grandparents apparently walked to school every day, uphill, both ways, in a foot of snow. Of course they were in good shape. I mean, who wouldn't be if you walked uphill both ways to school in a foot of snow? But, I'm a little concerned that if we're going to study walking to school, that we should figure out how to keep climate change from happening, because clearly we're going to need a lot more snow for the kids to walk in order to be as fit as our grandparents were, if that makes sense, if you follow me. But do we really want our 3- and 4-year-olds walking to school? Because the feds are also looking at universal pre-K once again. Because, the rest of the grades go oh so well. Let's start even earlier. I mean, I get that early education is key, in fact, crucial to a child's lifelong development. But really, do we want the prime years of childhood development under the tutelage of the government rather than our own? I mean, would you rather have them learning from you as a parent at that age than from whatever the government decides to teach them, or say Common Core? I mean, not to mention, who is going to pay for this? And this program would funnel billions of dollars, which, by the way, we don't have, into pre-K universal education. And I don't think what we want right now is more federal involvement in our kids' education, especially at that age. Let's keep it local. I mean, there's some good points. It's Senate Bill 1697, and there are some good points to this bill. I mean, it doesn't make it mandatory. Early education wouldn't be mandatory. It does protect against federal control over curriculum, but we're creating a system, if this bill passes, where the federal role in education just continues to grow, and we all know that future legislation could eliminate all the good provisions that this bill does have to kind of keep it somewhat sane. So I don't think it's a good idea. Call your senators, tell them to vote no on Senate Bill 1697. Or Google it yourself, do your research, then decide what you want to do. While we're on the school subject, the Attorney General of Virginia has recently decided that illegal aliens living in the Commonwealth of Virginia now qualify for in-state tuition. That makes them the 19th state to do this under the DACA Act, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. So let's understand this now. State grant and award money is what is awarded to those who are residents of the state. So, for example, my brother is headed to South Carolina, will be a freshman in college this fall. He's not eligible for state aid in South Carolina because he's a resident of Pennsylvania, not South Carolina. But if he was an illegal alien in Virginia, or I guess he could live in whatever state he wanted, then he could be eligible for aid in that state. How does that doesn't even begin to make sense. Not to mention that it's just not right. And let's just keep going with the school topic. Harvard's Kennedy School of Government now has added to its student orientation program a Checking Your Privilege 101 segment. What does that even mean? Great question. Let me read to you a few quotes. This is from Breitbart, William Bigelow's article on this, and he quotes some of those who are preparing this orientation class. So here's what one of them said. If what you've been told all your life is you're really talented and you deserve what you have, it's going to be really hard to find out maybe I don't deserve it and all these other people equally deserve it but never even had a shot. Schools are not giving students a space to manage that loss of identity. So you lose your identity, apparently, as a child if you're told that you're, talented. Then another student activist is quoted as saying, sometimes I feel that whole topics would be glossed over or completely misunderstood if I weren't there to share my poor minority perspective. I remember sitting in class first semester and thinking, no wonder the policies in America are so blank backwards. Harvard policymakers have no idea what they're talking about, no accurate historical knowledge, no personal context, and no humility or courage to simply admit they don't know and ask someone who does. So there you have it, an activist who says that Harvard policymakers don't know what they're talking about, even though Harvard, is an Ivy League college and everything. And there's one more quote here. This one's my favorite one. The substance of the training, talking about this orientation, while still under discussion, is to prepare students to understand the broad impact of identity on their decision-making and to engage them in constructive tools for dialogue. Because if you don't have an understanding of sociology, political science, critical race theory, feminist critique, and revisionist history, it's going to be very difficult to talk about certain groups' experiences and why these other groups continually have this advantage in society. So there you have it. Apparently, you have to understand revisionist history in order to understand how privileged you really are, you privileged people. I have an idea, though. Why don't we just teach plain old history? I mean, if you can't get out of our history that we live in the greatest nation on earth, and if a study of our founders' writings, not what someone says they meant by what they wrote, but what they actually wrote, if that doesn't give you a well-rounded view of our beginnings as a nation, I don't know what will. And then travel to a third world country, and you'll understand American greatness then. Work with the homeless. Interact with those who have physical handicaps. That's how you understand how blessed you are. That's how you learn gratefulness. It's not about bashing the way you were raised. It's about being aware of the world around you and using the gifts that God's given you to do what you can to make the world a better place. And in more exciting and sad news, it was, I saw earlier last week, it said, I can't remember where I read it, but the average 30-year-old American is now worth $8,000. $8,000 at 30 years old. That's just sad. I mean, what's the equivalent of $8,000? I mean, a car, a computer, a phone, is that about it? I mean, there's not obviously any real housing involved there, probably not a whole lot of property involvement. That's just not exactly the kind of hope and change that inspires people, is it? I don't think that it is. But there is hope. Last week, Sarah Blair, a 17-year-old high school senior in West Virginia, won a primary election in her state for the state legislature there. And the district that she's in, she's basically guaranteed to be sent to the legislature this fall. That's just amazing. And that's what our country needs. Our country needs young people who aren't afraid to get involved, who are willing to stand up and stick up for what they believe in no matter what anyone else says. You're never too young to make a difference. You're never too young to do what is right. Because young people aren't the future of America. They are America. And we have to get our kids involved in politics and in government and in community at an early age. You know, my parents took us into the voting booths with them all through growing up. You know, we got to teach our kids how the system works. We got to teach them right from wrong and how to make wise choices. The fate of the nation really is in their hands. Okay, let's change gears here for a minute. I want to talk about Senator Marco Rubio. He's been making waves, making headlines in recent weeks. It appears that he's gearing up for a presidential run. Everything points to that. And while his candidacy shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone, his commitment to that candidacy surprised me. You know, last week on Hannity, Rubio stated both on TV and radio that if he does decide to throw his hat into the ring for a presidential bid, a decision that he says he's going to make at the end of this year, then he is going to give up his Senate seat to do that campaign. Now, regardless of your personal opinion of Marco Rubio, whether you think he's too establishment, too conservative, or too weak on immigration, this is a move that everyone can and should respect, in my opinion. I mean, I can't remember the last time someone on the national level took this kind of an approach to any campaign or candidacy. And the fact that Rubio is willing to make this level of commitment in a playing field that looks like it will be anything but a sure thing for anyone entering it, that's incredible to me. And I mean, at this point, I don't foresee anyone else in the race that would make a similar move and give up their current position. I mean, unless, of course, they'll be near the end of their already term-limited term, say, like a governorship, for example, to run for president. So, on that side of it, this move could give Rubio a real advantage. But on the other side of the issue, I'm not sure that we really want our candidates to do this on a wide scale. And what I see going to happen if Rubio does go through with this is that everyone's going to come up with, yes, this is fantastic, this is what everyone should do. If they're going to run for a higher office, then they should give up the office that they already have. All right, but let's think this through for a second. All right, so if we have Ted Cruz, we have Marco Rubio, we have Rand Paul, say Mike Lee decided he wanted to run for presidency. Do we really want to lose 4 of our most conservative senators so that they can run for president, so that we can have a good competition for our presidential candidate? I mean, I get the principle of the matter, and I respect it highly. But I don't think it's worth us losing 4 good conservative senators so that we can get 1 good presidential candidate. And honestly, I'm not even frankly sure if I want Rubio to do this as much as I respect it, unless we know that we have a solid conservative who can replace him in the Senate in Florida. But again, the concept in itself is highly commendable. But with Rubio's announcement have come cries from all factions of the right, the people who like him, those who don't, those who think they have absolutely no choice in the matter, and the candidate is just going to be thrust upon them. Not to mention, you could just throw Jeb Bush in there, too. He's going to be thrust upon us. Now, this brings us to a huge problem. One of my biggest pet peeves with the right. Jesus said it first. Abraham Lincoln quoted him, and he said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." And there is no question that the right is divided. But what the question is can a divided right stand? I mean, according to the GOP, we're a big tent. We welcome all, as long as you're not too conservative. And according to the Tea Party, we are the only good people left. The GOP is dead. Our way or the highway. And then according to right-leaning libertarians, everyone should be able to do whatever they want as long as we have good fiscal policy. And would you social conservatives get over yourselves already? Each faction of the right fails to see its own weaknesses or the strengths of the others. But this house divided, I'm telling you, it cannot stand. We lose elections because we can't find a common ground. I'm not saying that we should compromise our beliefs. I'm saying that we should be reasonable in our expectations. The GOP must realize that it is the height of hypocrisy to claim big tent status but then have no room for social conservatives. They must also acknowledge that the Tea Party is predominantly a force for good, and its candidates are worthy of consideration. Those within the Tea Party have to come to recognize that the vast majority of the individuals they support may run as a Tea Party candidate, but that's an R that's listed after their name. And there's a reason for that. Then libertarians should acknowledge that there is a purpose for government. It may also be time for them to study what happens to a culture that focuses solely on fiscal issues and turns from social conservatism in exchange for moral relativism. I mean, last week's primaries in Nebraska, I think, showed us that the Tea Party is alive and well, with Ben Sasse winning. But the primaries prior to that in North Carolina and Ohio 10 days or so ago showed us that the GOP, quote, establishment is alive and well. So what's the answer? In my opinion, everybody needs to take a step back, take a deep breath, and consider the things that really matter in life and in elections. You know, one of my biggest pet peeves is hearing people say things along the lines of, the GOP has picked our candidate, Boehner has picked our candidate, doesn't matter what we do, we have no say in the matter. That's just not true. No candidate is guaranteed victory. None. Nada. Nil. Does an endorsement help? Of course it does. I mean, if nothing else, a party endorsement guarantees financial and volunteer support. But that is the only thing that it guarantees. I mean, why do candidates win elections? Because people vote for them. We can't blame an endorsement or lack thereof for a candidate's loss. In addition to that, it's my personal opinion that if you don't vote in the primary, you have no voice whatsoever to complain about who the candidate is on the November ballot. And in most of the country, you are required to be a registered Republican to vote in a Republican primary. Therefore, if your Tea Party candidate is running on the Republican ticket, but you're not a registered Republican and you therefore can't show up to vote for your candidate, whose fault is it, really, if they don't win? And you don't have to be a registered Republican. But if you're not going to vote for good Republicans and Tea Party candidates that run as Republicans, how can you complain when we end up with bad Republican candidates? I mean, don't vote against your conscience, but how can your conscience not be violated if you didn't at least vote for the lesser of two evils? And on the flip side of that, if Republicans are going to endorse rhinos, then how can we complain when Tea Partiers don't show up to volunteer and get out the vote for them? Bottom line is this. We on the right have to learn to find a way to get along because a house divided against itself cannot stand. And while I think that we will be victorious this fall, I also think that we are on the brink of a potential fall that we would never be able to pick ourselves up from again if we don't learn to get along. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this break. We have Janie Johnson.
Thank you for shopping Amazon.com. When you do, that makes you a sponsor of the 405 Media. Click on the Amazon banner on top of our homepage. Then shop. Simple. It costs you nothing. When you think Amazon, click one more time on the 405media.com, then on the Amazon banner. Thank you. Gang of 405 here on the 405 Radio.
Good morning, John. Morning, Scott.
Scott, what's going on in your life?
Do you really want to know?
You were never a nobody. Who are you trying to kid?
Oh, shut up.
They put these people in charge of organizations that have never been in charge of anything else as far as I can tell, and they perform abysmally.
Do you think that after everything that's happened, there's any way in hell that a single-payer system would be implemented while Barack Obama is still in office?
I'm going to take my surliness and go find those individual people that were just on that tape there and hunt them down this weekend just to solve it for you guys, okay?
Dr. Gruber sounds like the epitome of an elitist who's tucked away in his tenured position at a university far, far, far away from real life of real people.
The original and classic Gang of 405, Saturdays 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific on the 405media.com.
You're on the 405.
Off the Grid.
And he's also the only person I've ever seen that could write, "My dog just rolled over" on Facebook and get like 62 likes.
I'm also, just a correction, I'm the best looking person in social media too.
Off the Grid with Matt Hochman and Beckett Adams.
You have men in the United States Army running for cover and hoping the police show up.
You know, the base is a soft target that's filled with brave Americans, but they got their hands tied.
I'm sure the jihadists completely consider it a soft target. It's like a shopping mall, or like you said, a school. It's probably worse than a shopping mall, because at least here in Arizona, you're allowed to carry.
In several of these shootings, Jared Lautner in Arizona, the Sandy Hook shooting, a number of these shootings always involved somebody who was desperately unhealthy in the head, but for some reason the argument always turns into, get away from my gun. What can we do to maybe help people like this?
Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 Pacific, only on the 405media.com.
You're on the 405.
CSC Talk Radio is proud to be a part of 405media.com.
Listen to Beth Ann and Common Sense Conversations Talk Radio, weeknights, 8 p.m. and 1 a.m. Eastern, here on the 405media.com.
This is Brandon Darby. You're listening to the 405 Radio.
And welcome back to the Friddle Show on the 405 Radio. Tonight, Jamie Johnson joins us. She's the author of Don't Take My Lemonade Stand, An American Philosophy, and Obama 2012 Slogans Rewritten. Jamie, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So, I wanted to start off with your book, Don't Take My Lemonade Stand. I know it's been a little while since it came out, but I think the message is still incredibly relevant to us today. And if it's okay with you, I'd want to read just a little part of the preface, because
absolutely, freedom never goes out of style.
It doesn't. So you wrote, if in the preface, if we the people do not engage in the politics of life and government, who will? If we the people do not instruct our children how to take over for us when it is their turn, who will? If we the people do not get involved in government policy and take the initiative to put integrity and honor back into the political process, who will?
Exactly. Which got me started down this road when my 10-year-old son at the time asked me, we were watching the TV, and he asked me, Mommy, how do you know who to vote for? And I thought I had a great mommy answer. I said, whoever makes government smaller. Whoever gives less money to the government. And he's staring at me with his big brown eyes and his three brothers sitting there and looking at me. And as our kids like to do, he said, why? I was like, why? Freedom, it isn't free. If you don't learn about freedom, it'll be gone. We have principles, and they're just staring at me at these foreign concepts. And then I was trying to come up with more and more principles, and I came up 4 or 5, and then they just kind of left and went on the bus, and I went and I talked to my husband, and we started chatting. We were all day. We said, we better start teaching our kids why America is great. Our schools aren't doing it anymore, because if we don't teach them what makes America great, what freedom really is, and opportunity, it's going to be gone. And so that's what got me started. I just started making notes and principles and theories, so they would have some kind of, to organize their thoughts and so they could develop their own principles, and that way you could determine a course of action. And so that's how it all came about, and that's what I got across in the preface of the purpose of why I got involved.
Yeah, no, and I just started reading it. So far, I love it. Thank you so much for sending it to me, by the way. But basically, it seems to me...
I want to do this, I want to do that, so thank you
I know.
for that. Reassuring.
No, it's fantastic. I mean, and it seems like the bottom line is through, every page that I've been on so far, that it's about, what you're trying to communicate is America is about we the people, and about a great America for our children and our grandchildren. And, as everyday citizens, how can we engage with the culture? How can we prepare our kids for the future? So,
exactly.
And you talked a little bit about that, but...
Optimism.
Yeah.
And we have to, we don't have a choice. If we don't do it, it's like my son. I knew he read my book when he said, Mommy, what's a zealot? I said, zealot? I was like, oh, they zeal a lot of your money and they want to take it all. Because if we don't engage and teach our kids, the zealots will take over and teach them. If you don't get engaged in the politics, you become the victim of it.
Right, yeah, and I mentioned this just a little bit in my opening segment, but how do we get our kids involved in politics? What's the best way? How do you start kids down a path of understanding what our government is, what freedom is, and, just increasing their understanding of how America works?
It's difficult because there's so many people trying to say how government's the solution, government is the answers. But our kids know every day when they're at school how government does not work. They see what happens when they get assigned a class project. Who is it that does it? Some of the kids don't do it. They do it.
Right.
So you have to use everything you have to use as teaching moments. And my kids are like, Mommy, enough. I just think every chance you get, you have to teach them. And it's interesting because it works, because our U.S. History AP teacher at my son's school, who would be my third one taking the class, my son went in there, my third son, to the opening, and the teacher says, yes, the Revolutionary War was started because, these rich founders wanted to make money off the war. And my son started laughing. He says, everybody lost money. They lost everything. So they just looked at him, but he laughed at him. So we just have to prepare them and hope and do our best, and that they'll be able to go out and fight the good fight.
Right, because, if we don't prepare them at home, then, like you said, they're going to be at school, they're going to hear things like this, they're going to be, I don't want to say indoctrinated, but kids are very easily influenced, obviously. I have a friend over at my house today. My nephew was over, and he came over with his little Broncos backpack. And my entire family were huge Broncos supporters, right? So she just started cracking up, and she's like...
I know that from Twitter.
He doesn't... Yeah. She's like, he doesn't even have a chance. She's like, he doesn't even know that any other football team exists on the planet because you guys don't even allow him to experience anything else. And I was like, that's exactly right. The Broncos are the best. He will grow up a Broncos fan, and there's nothing you can do about it. And in a sense, I feel like that's kind of what we have to do with our kids. We have to be, if we don't show them from the beginning, this is what freedom is, this is what America is, then they're going to go out there, and somebody's going to tell them, hey, the Raiders are the best football team, and they're going to come home, and you're going to be like, what happened to my child?
Oh, my gosh, that's my problem then, because I'm a huge Vikings fan, because when I was little, I loved purple. But my husband grew up a Giants fan. His high school coach's brother was the coach at the Giants. And so I have a Seahawks fan, I have a Raider fan, I have a Charger fan, and I have a Chicago Bears fan. Go figure.
Okay, now,
so there's
you
your point. We better start earlier.
Freedom. That's right. That's right. We have to teach these things early. All the important things have to be taught early. Okay, but you also talk in your book about how you're a conservative, but you're registered Republican. Can you talk about that for a minute, if you would?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I live in Nevada, and there is no registered conservative. You're either, Republican, Democrat, and I'm sure there's like communist or whatever else on there. I didn't really get that far down there. But I just believe in our conservative and our founding and what a conservative believes in, of personal responsibility. And conservative, we're just conserving those founding principles that our founders put into law back in 1787 and Constitution Day. They gave us personal responsibility, and that outline the laws, the Constitution, as a clear legal document. If it's interpreted as originally intended, it allows us to climb out of every hole we were born into, because a lot of us are. My father was raised in an orphanage. My mother was adopted. Yet my father became a nuclear engineer. My mother became a registered nurse because they were able to climb out that hole they were born into by a ladder that's called free market capitalism. And there wasn't a government to throw dirt on their face or grease up the sides. They could climb up through their own hard work, get a degree, gain skills, and get a job, and then have 9 children, all with college degrees. So there is the American way. If you work hard, if we can keep government out of the way. And that's what I believe that conservatives need to do. And conservatism is easy. We're not against the all government. We're just against excessive, intrusive, corrupt government. But the problem we have today is our political process is rigged. It promotes cronyism. Because the job of a politician, once elected, is just to get reelected. And to get reelected, the politicians must take care of his or her constituents, whether they're Republican, Democrat, all stripes. That's their job. And then when they're not taking care of their own constituents, they're taking care of their buddies' constituents, and those are called special interests. So the primary reason we have rhinos is not ideology. It is career politicians. Our founders, never wanted us to have, to serve our government was a privilege, not a career. And so rhinos and conservatism, Republicans, this is just an argument for term limits and more transparency, accountability, not about winning the next elections. We need to take back, and perhaps we need to make new amendments to limit make term limits, and not just one in Congress and one in jail either.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. And, I mean, so basically, your parents lived the American dream, pretty much, is what it sounds like. They worked hard, they were successful. Do you think, is that still, with the jobs the way they are today, with kids coming out of school not having a lot of times a good education or an opportunity for that kind of an education, or not wanting to pursue that education that they could have, I mean, is the American dream, do you see it, is it changing? Do we understand what the American dream is anymore?
Well, it's very hard right now because there's so many obstacles to conservatism, which I believe is the American dream, which is to be able to live free from government intervention and not, government out there to like slap you down when you're trying to come, raise yourself up. Because the biggest obstacle right now is the liberal Democrats, they've created this comfort level that incentivizes not working. Democrats have turned the safety net, which as conservatives, we believe in. The conservative concept is, it's just simple. We need to help the truly poor and needy, no matter what a liberal says, and we need to create the opportunity for the rest to go back to work. But when you have Democrats turning the safety net into a hammock, and over 48 million people now on food stamps, the Democrats are just using other people's money to pay other people not to work and just to buy votes. We just need to take back our government, and that we need to change their self-interest is not to stay on welfare. We need to change the self-interest where, you're not paid not to work, you're paid to go to work. This whole idea of the minimum wage, of raising it, why don't we raise it or lower welfare, so it pays to go to work, because right now it pays people to stay on welfare. This disability fraud, welfare, you don't even have to go work to look for. You don't have to show ID to get an EBT card. You get a free Obama phone, free cable. We need to start taking back and incentivizing people to do the right thing, because what harm could be when not just the cost to American people and to people's self-esteem when they don't get self-actualized, but it's worse is when when these moochers take and steal government subsidy. They are robbing from the people who truly need it, the truly poor and the truly needy. That's who they're stealing it from. The money is then not available to take care of the truly poor. And that's what we need to get back to, is we need to get back to the role of government is to protect our rights, not hand out Obama bucks to buy votes.
Right, I agree with you completely, and I think this goes back to the whole thing of, raising our kids right. Because, a lot of my generation is growing up with an entitlement mentality. We think we deserve everything. We think that what's yours is mine. What's mine might be yours if I feel like it. But, we can't just tell people, hey, you don't deserve that welfare check. You should be working. And they'll be like, well, why? They have to, it's a mentality and a mindset that young people have to grow up with, thinking, hey, for me to be I need to be a contributing member to society. I need to have pride in what I do. I need to work hard. I need to earn what I get rather than have it be given to me. I'm not entitled to anything. And I think that, we don't get rid of that entitlement mentality until we reach our kids at a young age with what America really is and what we stand for. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. The liberal pitch, it's absolutely wrong if we're looking at the good of our country, because we're only as good as the character of our people, is our character of our nation. But in this liberal pitch, it's not only wrong, but it's simple. It's emotionally compelling. It's easy. Give me stuff. Those rich, mean people, the class warfare. The conservative pitch is right, but it's complicated and it's harder to grasp. Liberals spend their political dollars calling us names and shredding our reputation. That's their MO. What do conservatives? We spend our money explaining why these complex solutions we propose will work and why libs' plans won't. it's complicated, and that's why I think Twitter and getting more and more people to speak out, and we have to teach, like you're saying, we got to teach our kids the value of money, what profit is, why business. I mean, the business of America is business. And our schools, in elementary school, they don't learn anything about business. I mean, they might get a grocery store name in second grade. They go through, I looked at my kids' middle school history books. They mentioned free enterprise 2 times. And then I have a communist teaching AP U.S. history in Howard Zinn. I look at it as an educational opportunity, for my children.
Yeah.
But it's hard. There's so many people wanting to expand government, and it will continue to grow and squeeze individual rights unless we stop it. It's up to us, and it's going to take everyday common me and you, mom and pops, to do it. We have to band together.
We do, and you talk a lot in your book about conservatives versus liberals. You don't talk so much Republicans and Democrats because you say, conservatives can be Democrats or Republicans, liberals can be Democrats or Republicans too. But along with that, do you think that what Reagan said about it not being time for a third party, that what we need is a revitalized Republican Party, bold-colored differences, do you think that's still relevant today, or do you think the time has come where we need a third conservative party?
No, I absolutely do not. In fact, if you follow me on Twitter, you never see me. I have mentioned rhinos in my book. I take that. But I've come to the realization we cannot attack and eat our own. We need to band together, conservatives, Republicans, all of us on the right. The real enemy is the statists. They're these big government liberals, and look how well they band together. They put out their talking points, and everybody has them, and everybody says it. Look at the spin room of Obama, and he's a lifelong anti-American radical, and he's done more to harm our country, and he is the head of the Democrat Party. He's ruined our military power. He's destroyed individual liberty. He's just become an anti-free market, anti-individual, anti-constitutionalist. He has turned his 2 million Obamacrats and all of his EPA, Human Health Services, OSHA, he's turned them loose on American business, and it's killing us. Don't get me wrong. There's a little difference between the Tea Party and the GOP. The only difference is tactics, How do we go about it?
Right.
It's not policy or ideology. We want limited government. We want individual liberty. But and the emergence of the Tea Party has been the most important development in the last 25 years. We need this. We need it desperately because, our founding principles for the last 100 years have been quietly ignored. They've been ruthlessly thrown aside and grossly misinterpreted. So what we need to do, the Tea Party needs to teach Republicans how to fight against the take-no-prisoner tactics and liberal ruthlessness. And the absolute primary purpose we need to all unite under is that we need to light a fire under the Republican Party, not to destroy it. The liberals call us, on Twitter, racist, sexist, homophobes. I mean, I can't even tell. I can't even repeat some of them. And my husband doesn't even let me tell them what they are. And what do we call them? Liberal. They're ruthless, lying vultures, will do anything to steal all that we have. They would take all of our money, all of our property. They've already taken our health insurance. They've taken our doctors. They take our property. Every day you learn about a business they've taken or shut down. They're constantly take. Unless we take a stand, they're going to take it all. They just keep going more and more and more. And so what we need to do is unite under one flag, the Republican Go GOP, and fight together. I see people on Twitter taking apart Mitch McConnell. He has a 93% conservative rating. We cannot let perfect be the enemy of good. We need to stand behind and fight with our Republicans. Look, we've got a communist, Bernie Sanders, socialist, communist, and as a senator, we have Barack Obama elected twice. He is a borderline communist. He was raised a communist, a socialist. And what do? We say, it's Mitch McConnell's fault. It's John Boehner's fault. No, we need to educate people. We need to be on every day educating people. We need to win elections, get great candidates, not the Sharon Angles, not this guy from Missouri. We need not only good candidates, and they need to be electable, but we need to win elections. And once we win elections, we can get the Senate, and then we can win the president, and we can start putting some amendments in to limit the money they spend, put in real accounting, and let's just put in a fair tax and eliminate all the special interests and all the loopholes. A 17% fair tax, and then we get rid of the IRS, and we get rid of the targeting. There are simple things we can do, but what do politicians do? They want to be reelected, and everything they do is to increase their power, write new bills, hide what they're doing, write crappy bills so nobody knows. They write, these purposely vague the legislation intended to strengthen bureaucrats, and feed lawyers. That's what they do. And we just need to take a stand and make bills, one page, sunset them, and then go get off, what is this, 80,000-page tax code? That just needs to go away.
That's kind of a problem.
Yeah, so the politicians, rhinos, conservatives, liberals, we need to hold them accountable as not as the public servants they are, and not as the ruling class they think that they are.
I definitely could not have said it better myself. I think that was one of my most favorite little guest segments ever. Because it's so true. I mean, we cannot...
I could keep going. I could never stop. I could start railing on politicians. Just give me, there's no incentives for politicians. You saw my tweets yesterday.
Yeah.
There's no incentives for politicians who run the welfare agencies to get people off dependency. There's
true.
no incentives for politicians to get people off their dependency of government, none whatsoever. Politicians know, especially Democrats, they need a dumbed-down permanent underclass to stay in business, or they go out of power. If they don't have any poor people to give crap to, if they're successful, they have no job. And they've learned how to buy and bury favors and to hide their true intentions in unreadable, tomes that are called bills. Just like Obamacare. They didn't even read it, and they passed it. And now they want to fix it without reading it.
Which we can't do. I mean, we can't. That just blows my mind. We passed the bill without reading it, then we're going to fix it without reading it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
And the Democrat solution is higher taxes, increased regulation, and character assassinations. Attack. And they say it's the rich's fault. So even if they raised our taxes more and more and more, it doesn't solve the problem of their overspending and our entitlement overruns of promising people things, that are just phony, promised by corrupt politicians, other people's money. It's just crazy.
They all stick together on the left, and they back each other up, and they have an incredible machine, and we need to not be like them, but we need to not, you're right, we need to not be so focused on the perfect that we shoot our greats, because they're not perfect. And unless I run for office myself, I will never find someone that I agree with 100% of the time. And that's just the bottom line.
Exactly.
So,
but I can for sure never vote for a liberal.
That's right. Hey, Janie, I'm coming up on a break. I'm going to have to let you go. But before I do that, where can people find you? I know you have a very active presence on Twitter.
Yes, you find me at JJ Author on Twitter, or my website is www.jjauthor.com. And send me a tweet, an app message, and I chat every day. I write the top 40 tweets. Everybody should know that the liberal media will never tell you.
That's right. Yeah, I love your tweets. Your tweets are fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight. Hopefully we can have you on again sometime soon.
Oh, thank you so much. You guys have a great day, and God bless America.
Okay, thanks, Janie.
Bye.
Bye. All right, stay with us. Coming up next, we have one of my very good friends is going to be joining us. And write down our number. It's 877-297-8022 if you want to give us a call. We'll be right back.
You're on the 405.
Thank you for shopping Amazon.com. When you do, that makes you a sponsor of the 405 Media. Click on the Amazon banner on top of our homepage. Then shop. Simple. It costs you nothing. When you think Amazon, click one more time on the 405media.com, then on the Amazon banner. Thank you. Voces Latinas.
Rubio has 100% rating from AFP. He has like a 97% rating from Heritage. He votes wildly conservative, more conservative than 98% of senators on 98% of the issues. Why fire Rubio over one issue?
Voces Latinas, live, only on the 405media.com.
We don't want to fire Rubio over one issue.
We had 40 Hispanics walking around, and all they see, is pink slip Rubio, pink slip Rubio. Pink slip to me is fire.
Voces Latinas, Mondays, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific, only on the 405media.com.
But is it strategically smart to publicly heckle and call him a traitor? Rubio was lambasted publicly by Limbaugh. Michelle Malkin screams shamnesty like it's her job. I mean, shamnesty. Air your grievances with Rubio all you want, but I can't help it when I work with the Latino youth community trying to make them conservative, bring them to the conservative movement, and they're all like, well, Rubio's the only one that cares about us, and they hate him. They yell shamnesty at him.
You're on the 405.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
The Friddle Show.
Gay marriage is not even legal in Arizona, so how is this cake discussion even relevant?
The Friddle Show with Crystal Heath.
I mean, this bill, I read it today. You can read it. It's 2 pages long.
The Friddle Show, live Monday nights, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific.
It's become acceptable to sleep around. Did you know that only 3% of Americans abstain from sex until they're married?
The Friddle Show, family-friendly, politically incorrect news commentary from a young Christian conservative perspective.
And if my disagreeing with a lifestyle due to my religious beliefs is now the same as hatred, then I apparently hate 97% of Americans.
Live original talk only on the 405media.com.
The president, he wasn't too far off base when he said that we're no longer a Christian nation because, quite frankly, we're not. The general populace does not have a biblical worldview.
You're on the 405.
This is Katie Abram. You're listening to the 405 Radio.
All right, welcome back to the Friddle Show. I have my good friend Rose with us in studio today. She's going to help us answer our Ask Friddle questions and go over some other exciting things we have coming up.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Rose is a little bit sick. She doesn't always sound like a guy, but when she's sick or tired, this is how she sounds. So you're just extra blessed tonight.
You get to hear the alternate me.
The alternate Rose. Okay, so Rose, we have basically traveled a good portion of the globe together. I think we've been on 4 or 5 continents.
Yeah, something
at
like
least.
That together.
I guess not at least. We haven't been. I know we've only been to 5. But so the first place that I ever went was Sierra Leone. My first trip out of the U.S. was Sierra Leone, West Africa. And then a few years later, we went. You were there. A lot of things happened. Yeah, we went to St. Vincent too. But with Sierra Leone, what was your favorite memory? And yes, everyone, I do have a point for asking her this. Just, bear with us. What was your favorite memory from our trip to Sierra Leone that we were both on?
Out of that trip and all the memories that we have, probably have to say the beach trip that we took with, I think it was about 80 of the orphans came along, and we packed them up in buses and vans. And
wait, you got to time out. What orphans?
The orphans from the Wellington Orphanage. One of the orphanages, the only orphanage that we worked with at that time, that we went and visited and got to know for a couple of days. We took them on a special trip for Christmas and took them all to the beach. It was the first time they'd ever been on any trip like that. First time they'd been to the beach. A lot of them didn't know how to swim or didn't really know what to do with the ocean. So we had orphans climbing on us because they were scared of the waves that were coming, and it was just great playing on the beach with them and in the water. And I know it was a memory that a lot of the older orphans now look back on and remember. And since then we've done similar trips, but that was the start of it and one of my favorite memories from there.
So we come back from there. One of the guys that was with us, Doug, he was there. He visited the orphans with us. He was inspired to begin this organization, which now we both sit on the board of, called The Fatherless Cry, which is at thefatherlesscry.com. And we've been doing some different events and things lately. What is the latest thing that we have coming up?
Well, we have a 5K run coming up. Run/walk. If you don't run, you can walk it.
That would be Crystal.
That would be Crystal.
Crystal does not run.
I'll be running. Crystal will be in the back taking up the the walkers, leading the walkers.
Leading the walkers.
Not all the way in the back. Quite.
I'll probably be doing registration, so I won't be running or walking. I'll be standing.
Yeah. There you go. Well, you can run in place.
I can run in place.
Yeah.
There we go.
You can do that.
I'll run in place at our benefit run.
You inspire the runners as they come across the finish line. No, so we're going to be having this run coming up June 14th, so in about 3 weeks, in central Pennsylvania. So that'll be exciting. 100% of the proceeds are going to go back to the orphanage, the Wellington Orphanage in Sierra Leone, for food and school supplies and medical aid and things like that. So it's going to be exciting.
Well, very cool. So it's on June 14th. If you're in central Pennsylvania, visit our website, followuscry.com. All the details are there. We'd love you to join us. If you can't come, but you still be part of what's going on with our organization in Africa, there's different ways you can get involved in the website as well. Okay, so, Rose, this is the segment in the show where people ask me questions, or they might call in. They ask me things on Twitter. So, we will do a joint answering of the Ask Friddle questions tonight. How's that?
Well, this should be interesting.
Because I thought of you when I found the first one tonight. It's from Conservative Alley Cat. She wants to know, black diamonds or blue slopes? Groomed or full of moguls? How do you like your skiing?
Oh, wow.
So, go.
I like a mix of all of the above, depending on how my legs feel as I'm going down. So, I'll start usually on the blues and greens and work my way to the black diamonds as I get warmed up. And then towards the end of the day, middle of the day, some blues and greens again. Take a break from throwing some powder.
I personally do not like moguls. I am not a mogul fan at all. I think probably mostly because I messed up my knees at one point, and moguls are really rough on your knees. But also, I just don't feel like I can control well on moguls. As far as black versus blue, that really depends on if we're talking skiing on the East Coast or skiing in actual mountains. Because if we're skiing on the East Coast, black diamonds pretty much are blues once you go out west. So, East Coast, whatever. I will pretty much ski the whole mountain. Not some double diamonds, because the problem is with East Coast mountains, it's usually ice. So double diamonds and ice.
You really can't. It's just straight. You
it's
can't really
just a problem.
On the ice too much.
So it really depends on slope conditions, but I would say we're both pretty decent skiers. We could get down pretty much anything, even if
or
it means
down,
we're
pretty
just
much anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you taught me how to ski, so everything I know I learned from you.
Okay, moving on. From Emily Ann, the World Cup. It's such a big event. Surely you'll be tuning in, right?
Right.
I will just be. Right? Yes,
yep,
you will be watching? Okay, yeah.
Actually,
I will
we're
too.
planning on having a pool party and watching the game.
Am I invited?
Yeah, you can come.
Oh, cool. But you don't have
to try to set up a projector. And,
fantastic. Well, then, yes, I guess I'll be tuning in via a pool party. From Matt. If you could travel through time, where would you go?
You first.
No, see, this is what happens. People ask me these questions, and then you have to think about it. You just have to know. How to travel through time? Oh my goodness!
That's a really hard question. I've never answered that question. I've had it asked to me a couple of times.
You just never answer it.
I've avoided.
There are so many places and points in history. Okay, I think first off, why don't we go to the beginning?
Oh,
wherever the beginning was. If you want to say it was a Big Bang, fine. I want to be there. I want to see the Big Bang. Personally, I believe in creation, so I would rather go see creation, but, just for the sake of discussion. Let's see. Another one from Matt. Would you go into space if you had the chance?
Yes.
No, definitely not. That's scary.
See, I'm a little bit more of the daredevil.
You are a little
Crystal
more
will
of the
stay
daredevil.
on solid ground. There's solid ground in space.
Yeah, but you don't. There's no gravity. You can't stay on the solid ground. All right. Let's go for one more here, and then we'll see what happens. Okay. Another one from Conservative Alley Cat. She said, "Could you see yourself running for public office someday?"
No. No, I couldn't. Could you, Crystal?
See you running for office? No. For myself, Yes. It's possible. It's actually interesting that you would ask that question at the moment. I just found out yesterday that the Republican state committee seat for my county, there's only a guy running for the seat. There's not a, like the way state committee works is there is a male and female representation from each county. But no one ran on the female side. And I know this because I just got an absentee ballot, and I was like, oh my goodness, no one ran. And I thought, maybe we should create a write-in campaign for me and use only social media to try and reach people that I know in Perry County. See what happens.
I say go for it.
Should I go for it? We'll see. I only have 2 days to figure out if I'm going to do this. Well, actually, like 1 day, because today is over. So tomorrow is the day you need to go vote.
If you're set a record for campaigning for write-in.
So if you know anyone in Perry County, tell them to go write Crystal Heath in for Republican State Committee if they're voting Republican. So that's the answer to that question. And we're up on our last break, so I'm going to have to let you go, Rose. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. It was fun.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to have to get you back more to answer more questions because that makes it so much easier. It gives me a chance to think about what I want to say rather than just trying to spit it out right away. All right, stay with us. We'll be right back wrapping things up.
You're on the 405.
Thank you for shopping Amazon.com. When you do, that makes you a sponsor of the 405 Media. Click on the Amazon banner on top of our homepage. Then shop. Simple. It costs you nothing. When you think Amazon, click one more time on the 405media.com, then on the Amazon banner. Thank you. Off the Grid.
And he's also the only person I've ever seen that could write, my dog just rolled over on Facebook and get like 62 likes.
I'm also, just a correction, I'm the best looking person in social media too.
Off the Grid with Matt Hochman and Beckett Adams.
You have men in the United States Army running for cover and hoping the police show up.
You know, the base is a soft target that's filled with brave Americans, but they got their hands tied.
I'm sure the jihadists completely consider it a soft target. It's like a shopping mall or, like you said, a school. It's probably worse than a shopping mall because at least you're in Arizona, you're allowed to carry.
In several of these shootings, Jared Lautner in Arizona, the Sandy Hook shooting, a number of these shootings always involved somebody who was desperately unhealthy in the head, but for some reason the argument always turns into, get away from my gun. What can we do to maybe help people like this?
Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 Pacific, only on the 405media.com.
On the 405.
Here at the 405, we've got the cure for the Mondays.
Does anyone ever say to you, sounds like someone has a case of the Mondays? No, man. I believe you get your ass kicked saying something like that, man.
Fridays.
Next Friday is Hawaiian Shirt Day.
Sundays.
I'm also going to need you to go ahead and come in on Sunday.
You'll feel better.
Oh. You know what I'm talking about.
And be a better person.
I have people skills. What the hell is wrong with you people?
Make the 405 a,
I believe you had my stapler.
Staple of your week.
Yeah.
You're on the 405.
This is Katie Abram. You're listening to the 405 Radio.
And welcome back to the Friddle Show. We are wrapping things up for the evening. I had Rose stick around with me. We're going to go over a few last things here. First off, there is a restaurant, I believe, I can't remember where it is, Canada. Yes, there is a restaurant in Canada, Rose, that is giving a well-behaved kids discount to its patrons.
If I had kids, I'd go to that restaurant. My kids would be well-behaved.
No, if I had kids, we'd go to that restaurant because my kids would be well-behaved. Your kids would not be allowed to sit by my kids because then we wouldn't get the discount.
We'll just keep them separate. Your kids are better behaved than mine.
Or what we could do is we could switch kids if we had kids. You could take my kids because then they would still be well behaved, and your kids would be afraid of me, so they would be well behaved. Then we'd both get the discount. But I think it's a great idea. I mean, why
not?
Why not? Let's incentivize people to do what's right. Let's reward people for doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I love that idea.
Reward parents for treating their kids the right way.
Exactly.
Behave in public, or behave at all, really.
Exactly. All right. Then we had this. Here's another little fun stat for you. Actually, it's not fun. It's horrible. The Army is saying that more than 3/4 of 17 to 24-year-olds today are not eligible to join the military because they either aren't fit or they don't meet other basic requirements like a high school diploma or being able to read or write properly.
Wow.
So how does that work? Like, if anything were to ever happen in our country, we're kind of in a big problem. Big problem. Okay, lastly, we went and took our sisters this week. We saw Captain America. What did you think?
I thought it was a good movie. It was really great. I liked it better than the first one, actually.
Really?
I think so, yeah.
I really liked it. I thought it had a great message about personal freedom and government intrusion into our lives. But, that said, I didn't think it was better than the first one, and I was a little disappointed based on all the hype. Like, everybody's like, it's the best Marvel movie ever. I didn't come away with that feel. I really liked it, but I just didn't get the best Marvel movie ever feeling. So
I don't know which Marvel movie I would say was my favorite. It was still pretty good. I mean, it measured up to the Marvel movie standard.
Well, my theme is playing, so now we have to go. But thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. Remember, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction, and we will join you again next week.
Got a little soul, the world is a cold, cold place to be. Want a little warmth, but who's gonna save a little warmth for me? We know the fire waits, some believers, all of the sinners the same. Girl, you and I would die, unbelievers bound to the tracks of the train. If I'm born again, I know that the world will disagree. Want a little grace, but who's gonna say a little grace for me? We know the fire waits, unbelievers, all of the sinners the same. Girl, you and I will die, unbelievers bound to the tracks of the train. I'm not excited, but should I be? Is this the fate that half of the world is planned for me? I know I love you, and you love to see the world only water contains a little drop for me. See the sun go down, it's going on down, and the night is deep. Want a little light, but who's gonna save a little light for me? We know the fire waits, unbelievers, all of the sinners the same. Girl, you and I would die, unbelievers bound to the tracks of the train. I'm not excited, but should I be? Is this the fate that half of the world is planned for me? I know I love you, and you love to see but what only water contains a little drop for me. I'm not excited, but should I be? Is this the fate that half of the world's planned for me? I know I love you, and you love to see but what only water contains a little drop for me.